Kia ora and welcome everyone to another episode of Big Life Mindset. Today you're going to hear about a strong childhood memory that I have, a bucket list item of mine, and what I think it feels like when a person's life flashes before their eyes. And yes, they're all related. Cool, so when I was a kid, I remember sitting in my parents' bedroom reading this National Geographic magazine. You know, the ones with that really distinctive yellow border on the cover. Anyway, I remember this one more than others as I was seeing these photos of this amazing place that I'd never heard before, called Machu Picchu. There's photos galore of this place, and one of them really etched itself in my mind. But it probably made such an impact because it was about this lost civilization, like Atlantis. Only it was made of stone and it was built on the top of a mountain. Plus, you could actually go there and see it. At one point I remember saying to myself, I'm going to go there one day. Now, I didn't even know where there was. I was just this broke-ass kid in Newlands, and it didn't occur to me that there was actually on the other side of the planet. At the time, I was still in my brother's hand-me-down corduroy pants and using lard on my bread. And in those days, international travel was something you thought only the super-duper rich did. So this was way out of my league. Quick fact about lard, folks, in case you've never had the pleasure of using it. It's basically a poor man's butter made of 100% animal fat. In this case, pig fat. Just imagine dumping pig fat on your bread and thinking that that was gourmet. I reckon this particular memory probably found its way locked into my memory banks even more though, because I used to watch this cartoon back in the day called Mysterious Cities of Gold. Anyone else remember it? It's old school. Man, I can still hear that theme song now, so I'll probably have to put a link in the show notes. Anyway, as I grew older, life kicks in as it does, and I've completely forgotten about that experience, with the National Geographic magazine, and the feeling that I had while reading that article that day. Years later, and I've started travelling overseas more. Debs and I have done our OE in England, and the world seems a lot smaller. I'm also starting to build an itch to see this place called Machu Picchu that I've heard of. Eventually, that itch becomes an overwhelming urge, and Machu Picchu becomes a bucket list item for me. After months of planting the idea with Debbie and carefully watering it, she finally gives me the green light to go backpacking in South America, with the key goal being a chance to visit Machu Picchu. Now, just quickly, if you're wondering, Debbie and I travel very differently. Whereas she's more the hotel and hairdryers kind of person, I'm pretty much the exact opposite. All I need is a roof over my head. Walls would be nice, but they're not a necessity. And she's definitely not a fan of planes or long distance travel, so going solo is a reasonably straightforward option. A few planes, trains and automobiles later, and I arrive in Aguas Calientes, which is near the place, and finally Machu Picchu in Peru. When I get there, it's shrouded in fog and visibility isn't much further than a few meters in front of my face. To say I was feeling disappointed would be a bit of an understatement, but thankfully our guide up the mountain, who must have seen this disappointed look slapped across tourists' faces before, lets us know that eventually the sun will burn it all off and the visibility will be great. You could cue a sigh of relief from everyone at that stage. Now, I'm not easily impressed by archaeology. You can call it bragging or whatever, but I've been able to see the Great Wall of China, the Pyramids of Giza, Colosseum, Stonehenge, and the Taj Mahal, but nothing moved me like Machu Picchu did. In what felt like seconds, the fog and mist pulled away, and when it did, I was standing in this courtyard surrounded by one of the true wonders of the world. With that visibility, I suddenly felt insignificant and small and naive. The stones used to construct the city were huge, like massive. But the thing that really got my attention was how precisely they'd been cut. Like someone with a robot and a laser had carefully sculpted them, carried them up the mountain, and placed them effortlessly on top of each other. Like if you or I had joined Lego pieces together. to learn that it had all been done by hand, by a civilization that didn't even use the wheel, man, it blew my mind. And to be fair, it probably still does. Anyway, the day before I get there, based on this recommendation, I grab a ticket to climb a mountain that's next to Machu Picchu called Huayna Picchu. If you're not familiar, when you see photos of Machu Picchu, there's often this mountaintop in the background that overlooks the city. That's Huayna Picchu. It's got a limited number of people each day that can climb it, and it's definitely not for those in poor health. The view from the top, however, is simply awe-inspiring. When I get to the top, I sit down on this platform ledge and take the obligatory photos, surveying the landscape below and admiring this spectacular view. And then it hits me. All of a sudden, I realize I'm looking at exactly the same view as that photo that I had seen when I was a kid. I must have been sitting in exactly the same spot as that photographer had been. And that memory that I'd had as a child, which I'd completely forgotten about over the course of my life, came flooding back in, overwhelming my senses. The realization alone was enough for me to whisper, "Oh my God," as I was hit by that sensation that I reckon people on their deathbed must feel when parts of their life flash before their eyes. It was like this whole chain of puzzle pieces suddenly clicking together, and the instant they did, I could trace that sensation or experience that I was having back all those years to when I was sitting on my parents' bed with my legs crossed under me as I was hunched over a National Geographic magazine, looking at a photo of this place and saying to myself, I'm going to go there one day. Man, what a moment. Hey, thanks everyone for joining me again. It's funny, but there's so much of my life that I just can't remember. Yet there's some sensations and emotions that are forever etched in my mind. That realization I had, that feeling of it all coming crashing back on me while I sat on Huayna Picchu, is one that sticks out. Hopefully, you'll have some of these memories too, especially these positive ones, even if you can't quite access them right now. I do have a mate, however, who seems to remember everything about every single situation. So, man, I've got to get him on here one day and he can just share some stories with you. All good. All right, so remember to click follow, subscribe, and give this the 5-star review treatment if you're enjoying them. And finally, my challenge for you today is slightly different. And it's to think of someone in your life that you care about and send them a message, a text, WhatsApp, whatever. Word it however you want, but make sure the crux of it is that you let them know that you're thinking of them. That tiny, almost insignificant gesture can really make someone's day. And speaking from experience, I've had so many positive replies to that act, and it's generated conversations with people that I'd long since lost touch with. And if that feels uncomfortable for you to do, then that's perfect. Get out there, be uncomfortable, and grow.